Stories of War. World War III. Damn You. Based on the song lyrics and poems of John Eaton. It was a quiet morning when the world began to crack. The Iron Gates Dam, once a symbol of progress and human achievement, stood tall against the river that flowed beneath it. But all that was about to change. At the crack of dawn, the enemy missile strikes shattered the dam's foundation with pinpoint accuracy, unleashing a torrent of water that ravaged everything in its path. The explosion rippled through the land like a fist hitting a fragile glass. The floodwaters surged, turning the once beautiful landscape into an ocean of devastation. As the waves carried away homes, entire villages were swallowed whole. Families were torn apart, their lives swept away in an instant. The land was no longer a place of life and hope, it had become a graveyard. But it wasn't just the dam that was destroyed, it was the very heart of the nation. The enemy's motive was clear: they wanted to break the people's spirit, drown their hopes, and make an example of those who defied them. The destruction of the Iron Gates Dam was not a natural disaster, it was a deliberate, calculated act of war. It was an act of ecocide. The flood was meant to serve as a reminder of the enemy's power, dominance, and ability to erase what they deemed weak. But the people of the land would not let themselves drown. The waters receded, leaving behind an almost unrecognizable landscape. The once bustling towns were now ghostly ruins, their streets submerged, and their buildings reduced to rubble. The damage was unfathomable. Thousands of lives had been lost, and countless others would never see their homes again. For the survivors, the destruction was not just a tragedy but a betrayal. The enemy forces had crossed a line, committing an atrocity that no one could ignore. The international community watched in horror, but no one came to their aid in time. In the midst of the chaos, rage began to stir. It wasn't just about losing their homes, it was about losing their future. It was about a sovereign nation being attacked and erased by a larger power. The people could feel the weight of their ancestors' resilience in their veins, and they were not about to let this injustice stand. As the country lay in ruins, the survivors began to organize. The resistance started small, an act of sabotage here, a surprise attack there. But the message was clear: we will fight. They were not just fighting for revenge. They were fighting for their right to live freely, for their children, and for the future of their homeland. The invaders had thought they could wipe them out. But the survivors proved them wrong. The resistance grew stronger with each passing day. Former farmers, teachers, doctors, and soldiers all became part of a larger movement, a movement determined to strike back. They hit the enemy supply lines, blew up infrastructure, and sabotaged everything that had been built on the blood of their people. The cries of defiance echoed across the land: "Damn you! Damn you for what you have done!" But the invaders did not listen. The resistance wasn't just fighting for land. They were fighting for their very humanity. They were fighting against the idea that power could be built by destroying others. They were fighting against ecocide, the destruction of their environment, their culture, and their way of life. As the resistance gathered strength, a powerful strategy began to emerge. The people stopped focusing on individual battles and began targeting the enemy's supply chains, logistics, and technology. It was guerrilla warfare, waged in the shadows, but it was becoming increasingly effective. One by one, the resistance reclaimed land. The floodwaters had washed away their homes, but not their resolve. They fought for every inch of ground, and with each victory, they gained more support from the people. In the heart of the country, where the destruction had been most severe, a new force was born. The Black Volga Unit, named after the legendary The Enemy's Vehicle, became infamous for its ferocity and cunning. This unit was the heart of the resistance, striking fear into the enemy soldiers who occupied the land. The resistance leader, a former soldier turned revolutionary, spoke to the masses: "We are not just reclaiming land. We are reclaiming our lives. The waters may have drowned our homes, but they will never drown our hope. Damn you for what you've done. We will not forget. We will rise." As the war waged on, the enemy began to feel the pressure. Their occupation was crumbling. For every town they conquered, 2 more fell back into the hands of the resistance. And the people's resolve only hardened with time. The invasion had been swift, but it was not lasting. The flood had washed away more than homes, it had washed away the enemy's confidence. The world may have turned its eyes away, but the people refused to forget. They would ensure the world knew the truth of what had been done to them. The resistance had grown too powerful to ignore. The enemies had underestimated the resolve of those they tried to break. They had underestimated the power of a people who would never forget the day they were betrayed. Finally, after months of fighting, the enemy forces began to retreat. Once confident in their victory, their soldiers were exhausted, surrounded, and defeated. The resistance had taken back their land. The enemy's leaders, hiding in Moscow, were no longer safe. The reckoning had come. The flood waters had receded, but the pain and scars of war would never fade. The people of the land had reclaimed their homes, rebuilt their cities, and planted flowers where the earth had once been soaked with blood. The children growing up in the shadow of war now ran freely through the streets, their laughter ringing in the air. Once poisoned by the flood, the soil had been nourished by the sweat and tears of those who fought for its restoration. The world, watching from afar, now understood the true cost of ecocide. The enemy had thought they could drown them, but the people had risen. And so, one quiet day, as a mother held her child close and looked out over the rebuilt city, she whispered, "This is the world we fought for. This is the world we saved." The invaders had come, but the people had won in the end. They had survived. They had healed. And they had sent a message to the world, "Damn you for what you have done. But we are free,